Hello and welcome to You with Jesus. You will see the iconic Australian akubra on top of my head in solidarity with all the Australian shepherds across this grand country. Yes, I'm a city boy and I don't get to wear it too much. It hasn't got a speck of dirt on it. I only wear it in the city. But hey, I'm in solidarity with the shepherds, and today is all about shepherds. It's about gates. Jesus says, I am the gate. Jesus says, I am the good shepherd. Let's get into it. In the 10th chapter of John's Gospel, Jesus makes two statements, one being, I am the door, or I am the gate. And the second statement is, I am the good shepherd. These two statements are linked to each other. So let's consider the historical context in which Jesus is speaking, and then we'll look at the passage. I want you to picture a small village in Palestine. Many in the village would own a few sheep, and rather than each household having their own enclosure for just their sheep overnight, the village would have a communal courtyard, which would be manned by a gatekeeper, and the shepherd would generally be a member of the family. And when it was time for the sheep belonging to the shepherd to go out of town for a while to be fattened up on the grassy hillsides and drink from the quiet streams, the shepherd would come to the gatekeeper at the village enclosure, and they would be allowed into the courtyard to access his or her sheep. And a thief or robber couldn't get past the gatekeeper, so they would attempt to climb over the wall of the enclosure perhaps, and the shepherd's voice would be known to his sheep, and he would call out his sheep by name to follow him out of the enclosure, and he would walk ahead of them and they would follow him out of town. Now, the shepherd might have to walk 5 or 10 miles out of town to access a suitable grazing area in the open country. And after the sheep had had a day of feeding and drinking, the shepherd would count up his sheep, but rather than taking the sheep back into the town, would guide them into a rough stone enclosure in the open country. This picture's from Scotland, but it gives you a bit of an idea of what these enclosures look like. Just 4 simple walls with an opening in one of the walls about a metre wide. It didn't have a door or gate, it was just an opening. And so the shepherd would lay across the opening during the night. The shepherd was the door to the sheepfold. The sheep came in by that door and could only go out by that door. If the sheep thought that they'd like to go for a little wander at night, it would wake the shepherd, who would make sure that they were safely inside. Also, in laying across the opening, the shepherd would be able to detect if a predator was seeking to gain access to the sheep. He would wake up and protect the sheep from harm. The next day, the shepherd would lead them out of the sheepfold for another day of abundant feeding and sustenance. Let's look at the passage. Very truly I tell you, Pharisees, anyone who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in by some other way, is a thief and a robber. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. But they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice. Jesus used this figure of speech, but the Pharisees didn't understand what he was telling them. Therefore, Jesus said again, very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. I am the door. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. Jesus is making a direct comparison between himself and the Pharisees, the teachers of Jewish religious law, who had great control over the people of the day. Their synagogues were not places of safety. They were not true shepherds. They had no concern for the sheep. And this reality was evidenced in the previous chapter, John chapter 9. Concerning the healing of the man born blind. The contrast between Jesus and the Pharisees in that passage demonstrated that Jesus is a healer. He's a restorer of sight. He's a life giver and someone who cares about the people and wants to include them. The Pharisees, on the other hand, show themselves to be opposers of healing, and they themselves are in the dark as well as keeping others in the dark. And they're active in throwing people out of fellowship. They're totally blind and uncaring towards the very people that they're supposed to be looking after. The Pharisees were not the way to life. They were not protectors from evil. They were themselves evil charlatans masquerading as religious, but were not in any way good shepherds. So let's focus on Jesus' statement, I am the gate. And next episode, we'll focus on I am the good shepherd. Now, that word gate, translated from Greek to English, can just as easily be translated door or opening. It's why some translations of the Bible choose one over the other, but they are both correct. The central meaning is that he's the way one passes through in order to find safe pasture. And again, this is in direct contrast to the religious leaders of the day who were so focused on protecting their own position of power and privilege that it blinded them from acting in a way which was good for the people. If we want to be safe, if we want to know the truth, if we want to experience life, then we must come through Jesus, not by religious law. It's through him that we have access to the life God has for us. It reminds us of another statement Jesus made when he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. He is not the way to the way. He is the way. He is the door. He is the gate. And how does Jesus, the door, function as the door? By laying his life down for the sheep. So shepherds in ancient times would lie across the opening to the sheep enclosures in the open country. Nothing goes in or comes out except through him. Jesus laid down his life for us, his sheep. He died a cruel death on a cross, the righteous for the unrighteous, the holy for the unholy. Now contrast Jesus to the Pharisees. They laid down nothing. They were not the door. Listen to the words of Jesus. Beware of these teachers of religious law, for they like to parade around in flowing robes and love to receive respectful greetings as they walk in the marketplaces, and how they love the seats of honour in the synagogues and the head table at banquets. There was nothing sacrificial about their leadership. It was all for show. They laid down nothing. Jesus, on the other hand, laid down his very life. He and he alone is the door. If he had not laid down his life, he could not claim to be the door. But in dying for us, in laying down his life, he has demonstrated his great love for us. And from this act of self-sacrificial love, we can know that he's the only one who's ever come into the world and made a bunch of religious claims and is in himself totally and absolutely 100% committed to us. So much so that he would die for us. He made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness and being found in appearance as a man. He humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. Beautiful words from Paul to the Philippians. And through his death, we are protected by the power of his name. Evil forces that might seek to harm cannot come through that door because they have to get past Jesus. Let's look at it again. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. It's interesting that it's in both coming in and going out. In coming in, we are saved, we're protected. That is, our eternal destiny is secure and we can live forever with Jesus. But Jesus doesn't want to just gather us all in our safe little enclosure. He wants to lead us out into green pastures, into the abundant life he has for us. And he wants us to draw other sheep into his sheep pen that belong to him. He is not just the door to the way in, he's the door to the way out. The pasture, the abundant life, does not come by being locked up overnight. It comes as we are led out by Jesus in daily adventures with him. His life is not just a life of eternal protection, it's a life of daily abundance. And he's the door to the best adventure you can ever have. See you in the next episode.